Well, severe weather season has officially begun in the Great Lakes, and we are watching a system make its way towards the Great Lakes region, arriving Tuesday, bringing some showers and thunderstorms that could be strong, maybe even severe, as well as maybe a little bit of snow on the backside. In this video, I'm going to talk about where the storms will be getting their strength from, as well as the warmer pattern change that we will be seeing for much of the next month. Hello everybody, the time is 5:26 p.m. and it is, what day is it? February 23rd. Welcome to another update from Great Lakes Weather. Hope everybody is doing well today, and we have a system to talk about, something that could bring some severe weather to a good chunk of the Great Lakes region, as a matter of fact. We will see some 70s probably next week in some places across Indiana in particular, maybe even parts of Ohio as the system makes its way in. We're going to get a nice broad warm sector that makes its way up into the area that could also draw in some moisture that will favor the development of some storms, as there will be a nice setup for possibly some wind shear with these storms as well. So there's a lot of different things on the table. Still some variables to kind of trim out with this setup, but there is good consistency that there will at least be some showers and thunderstorms for much of the Great Lakes region come Tuesday into Tuesday night, maybe even into Wednesday as well. So let's get right to it. We're going to start with the SPC's outlook for this upcoming event. So we're watching, first of all, for the day 5. Okay, so for day 5 would be representing on Tuesday. And I think really the timing of these storms, based on what the current model projections are showing, is going to be between 3 p.m. and midnight across much of eastern Illinois. Eastern Illinois is going to get the earlier shot, and then you're also going to see it in southern Michigan as well as northern Indiana. You see this nice yellow blob that's kind of sitting over the eastern continental United States. This is where that cold front's going to be making its way through just in time for daytime heating, and that will favor the development of some thunderstorms. Hopefully, one thing we're watching out for is the potential for a capping inversion to be in place in the atmosphere where the air above is warmer, and that sort of inhibits the development of some thunderstorms. But it looks like recent models are kind of favoring that that's not going to happen, but there's still going to be some questions as to if we will see storms in this particular area here. But if we do, and those storms will have some energy to draw themselves off of, we will probably see a little bit of good directional shear with this setup, as well as a nice strong jet aloft that could favor the development of these storms. So there's still several questions, and we're going to look at those questions, but this is what the SPC has out for Tuesday. 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of a point. Possibly could see a slight risk being issued within the next 2 days, and if the models still hold together with the setup, wouldn't be surprised to even see possibly an enhanced setup for severe storms across this area. Chase plan, already kind of getting that on the table. It will likely stick around western Indiana, eastern Illinois, southwest Michigan, places that I can traverse rather quickly. So just some places that might be touched on when I chase this come Tuesday. Day 6, again, if we looked at the previous models or the previous outlooks, you saw that it was included southern Indiana, southern Ohio. This outlook doesn't include them, so it looks like you guys down in southern Indiana, southern Ohio might see part of that risk. It looks like it's probably going to be more marginal for you. Really, the storms are going to move through overnight for much of eastern Indiana and western Ohio into eastern Ohio as well. And again, you're losing that daytime heating, and that sunshine that kind of also helps to ramp up some of that instability. There will still be the potential for some good shear with these storms, so it still could have the energy based on that. But again, those will begin to move through and will likely continue to weaken as they moved eastward, with some additional redevelopment of storms by the time we get into Wednesday across areas to the south. So that's the 15% risk that's outlined across parts of the southern United States. So that's something to watch out for. Would not be surprised, though, if southern Indiana, southern Ohio got touched on in like a marginal risk if this holds together from the SPC's outlook. So we're going to look at some raw weather data. Again, I'm not gonna forecast with this. This is just the model data. Just want to interpret the model data. It changes frequently, so again, keep in mind that what you see in these upcoming models are not going to be a certain thing. Okay, it's probably going to be it's probably going to change over the next few days. We're still 5 days out from this event, so there's still some questions with what is going to occur, but there is more model consistency, so there's a bit better forecasting confidence with this. So let's start with the GFS and get an idea of how this is going to evolve. So again, this is the latest GFS just coming in fresh off the supercomputers that run this. So again, we're going to progress it forward to about Monday. You can kind of see that there's a system starting to show some development off to the west. Okay, and what's going to happen here is that's going to continue to progress off the northern portion of the United States. You can see the center of that low kind of sitting right there. On the backside, you see that snow. You will have some cold air on the backside of this, and then you'll also have a strong jet that's going to bring in a nice, warm, moist air mass into portions of the eastern continent of the United States. Now, moisture is also going to be a question. It is probably going to be moist air, but how much moisture will influence the development of these storms as well. But if we freeze frame it here at hour 87 and we take a look at the jet stream aloft, and we go to about the 500 millibar height here, you can see that there are some 500 millibar winds coming in with this system. It doesn't have as much prominence as it did as in recent model runs. If you progress a little bit forward, you do see that there is going to be wind shear, particularly across portions of central Indiana and then also kind of getting into parts of northern Indiana. So there is going to be jet or some westerly flow with this system as it makes its way in. If you go down closer to the middle layers, you see that you will have some southwesterly winds coming in. But look, if you look into parts of northern Indiana and eastern Illinois, you don't see as much of a push of stronger winds. So that's just something that's still in question with this setup. At the 850 millibar height, so getting closer to the lower levels, you do have a push of southerly winds coming along with this system. So by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon, when these storms are expected to initiate, you see that the energy really makes its way up into portions of eastern Indiana, western Indiana as well. So that's going to be something we watch carefully to see how the strength of how these storms will evolve, if we'll likely see more of a tornado threat with this or not. So some things just to keep in mind as we continue to forecast for this upcoming event. How will these winds evolve? And the strength of those will determine the strength of the directional shear and speed shear in the atmosphere, which will favor the development of more volatile storms. And right now there's some sloppy inconsistency with regards to at least the GFS model. So that's something to keep in mind. But let's go back to the precip type. Get a look here. So again, this is as of 21Z. You can see the GFS really doesn't play out many storms as of 3 p.m. But as you get towards 7 p.m., you notice here there is some hints of green here and there. Now, the hints of green, yes, they are present. Okay, the Euro puts out a little bit more of a more well-defined setup for these storms. But if you get a sounding out in eastern Illinois, you do see that marginal torr hazard type. You do have that low cloud base. Right here is something to be watching out for, because the strength of this capping inversion may inhibit the development of some thunderstorms, despite the fact we will have instability in the atmosphere, and you will have good storm relativity with this as well. You'll have steep lapse rates, but again, if there's a capping inversion, that could put a cap, actually put a cap on things with regards to this system. So hopefully the cap, we'll see if the cap kind of sticks there or not. But by 7 p.m. you get another sounding when those cells start to initiate on the GFS, and you see the capping inversion still there, but it does show a little bit of weak convective development on the GFS. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these, if they get through that capping inversion, produce some stronger storms. So that's kind of the concern with this setup, and the confidence still with this forecast is pretty low. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Euro model, we're going to get closer, zoom in. The Euro has a bit more of a high resolution graphic to show with this, so that's why we're going to kind of zoom in with it. But as we get into the morning, you see some thunderstorms might develop ahead of that approaching warm air mass that's going to be making its way in as we get into Tuesday. And you see by about 1 p.m. You have that warm, moist air kind of making its way into the region. And let's pause it at hour 102 real quick and take a look at the dynamics in the atmosphere at this current point. So the 500 millibar height, again, does show a bit more of stronger winds and the upper levels of the atmosphere at the 500 millibar height level. So again, 500 millibar height is higher level in the atmosphere, upper levels, and it's coming out of the west. You can see the strength does increase as you go far to the south, which again, why I think probably some more volatile storms will be focused across parts of central Indiana and as you go south. So it looks like the strength of those will probably focus down here. But if we get a push of good higher level winds up here, we might see a good strengthening of the storms up towards Michigan as well. And then at the getting closer to the middle layer, you see that there's kind of a lull on this model. That's probably going to change over the next few days. We'll see how that goes out. But that weakening point might also cause some, I guess, changes with regards to the setup. But you can see that there's still it's still pretty sloppy. You can't really get a good judgment as to what exactly is going to occur. But there's still, regardless, there is going to be directional and speed shear present with these storms, and it's something to watch out for. The strength of those will determine the strength of the outcome with this system. But back to the precip type. Going here. So you do see, again, you get a sounding out ahead of this, out in eastern Illinois. You got a marginal torr sounding once again. Cape values are increased on the Euro, so that means the instability in the atmosphere from the Euro compared to the GFS is a bit more, I guess, a bit larger. And with this type of setup where you have a decent jet stream, Cape values, again, over, I guess you could say, 500 or 1,000 will favor development of some thunderstorms that could possibly be strong. But you look here with regards to the setup, and at the surface you have southerly winds, and then they gradually shift westerly as you go into the upper levels of the atmosphere and strengthen. So you do have that directional and speed shear present according to what this model depiction is. The hodograph doesn't look too good. Really, the nice curvature you would want with this setup, it would look something like this. But I will show you kind of what is being shown by about 7 p.m. or actually 4 p.m. because we were at 1 p.m. right there. So this is at about 4 p.m. You get a sounding once again out ahead of this, and there's that torr sounding, and hodographs start to take better shape. So those winds are still making their way. They're moving in from the southwest, following that low pressure that's making its way through, and that could favor stronger push of winds. You can see that the winds here have strengthened compared to the previous sounding that we looked at as of 1 p.m. But as it goes farther to the, as you go farther into the afternoon, you can see that that wind does tend to increase and pick up in intensity, especially as you get into the upper levels. So the strength of those winds will favor the development of some stronger storms if this model tends to hold together. Now notice the Euro also depicts the possibility of a little cap in the atmosphere higher than 1 kilometer above the ground. Again, if that cap strengthens over the next few model runs, this could be a different scenario. So it's something to still keep track on with regards to this setup. But storm relative velocity is between 200 and 300. That is enough to favor some supercell development of some storms, and the lapse rates are going to be steep, and you still have a little bit of surface level Cape 3 Cape that will be present as well. So so there's still going to be good potential for some severe weather so long as the models follow suit with what they have been saying over the past couple of days. You can see by about 7, we've got thunderstorms making their way through portions of southern Michigan and also portions of Indiana and Ohio. I think the stronger storms will be focused farther to the south of this area here. Now, that's not to say that these storms won't be strong, because again, Euro does depict instability to be still present, not as present, but again, as that rain does move through, the instability will start to go down. But I do think the storms that are down here in portions of northwest Indiana and eastern Illinois will be stronger, because you have a stronger push of stronger winds at different levels of the atmosphere at that point, favoring directional and speed shear. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. On the backside, the snow will likely make its way through. That is according to what the ECMWF is saying. It might even be enhanced a little bit by the lake, possibly, with a sharp drop in temperatures by the next day after this cold front makes its way through. You can see that the storms will push through parts of Ohio. The strength of these storms will likely remain uncertain, probably weaker. And they will be possibly becoming elevated as we go into the overnight hours. So that's just a thing to keep in mind. This is at 1 a.m. what is being depicted here. So let's freeze frame it and take a look at the hodographs. Again, typical hodograph curvature. The best hodograph that you can see based on this model output, I would say a good one is sort of depicted right in this area here, western Indiana, and then you do have instability between 1,000 and even getting close to 1,500 across portions of Illinois and portions of northern Indiana as well. Southern Michigan getting Cape values around 1,000 according to the Euro. GFS plays it out differently. Okay, less instability. The curvature in the hodograph is still there, but it's not a very large curvature in the hodograph, but you get a sounding, still that good tornado sounding, low cloud base, directional shear with that, and Cape values around 1500 as you get into eastern Illinois. So less instability is being depicted by the GFS. That's just that's something that will come into question later on. But moisture is going to be kind of a key deal with regards to the system as well. So we're looking at the dew points. Again, temperatures during this time will be close to 70 degrees in a lot of spots. Okay, if you get a sounding up towards Michigan, southern Michigan at this point, you see temperatures are going to be in the 60s. So that could play a role in the dew points as well. And you notice up in Michigan, the dew points are drier. You can see there's a good separation here between the temperature and the dew point. The green line depicting the dew points here between 67 and 53 degrees. So the dry, however much moisture we see, will play a role in the development of these storms, because saturated air is more capable of creating a more intense storm. So as you go farther to the south, though, in portions of western Indiana, you see the dew points rise towards 60. Okay, 60 is a good number, especially when the temperatures are going to be in the mid to possibly upper 60s during this time. So again, a tightening of that will create a more saturated situation for these storms. But again, even with less saturation, if that wind shear comes into place, we still could see some storm development even with a little bit of air that's not fully saturated at that point. So that's what we're watching with this system. I also want to kind of point out that we are not done after this system too, and I'm not going to go into detail about this upcoming system that is being depicted as we get into later on into March, but there's good agreement amongst the ensembles that there will be a second system as we get into March 4th. So that was not this next week, but it's the following week. There is a good agreement in a system or a trough making its way in that could favor the redevelopment of some storms once again. Now, that's why I'm not going to go into any detail about the system, because there's still going to be a lot of questions as to how this goes. But CFS model, again, this right here I want to also show, because it looks like winter is really going to end effectively for a lot of the Great Lakes region. We will see some snow tonight. I didn't mention that too much. There's going to be a little bit of a hint of snow with a quick system that makes its way through overnight tonight, and we'll see some cool temperatures over the weekend. But I think a pattern change is really in place to where we're going to see some warmer weather. You can see the temperature anomaly. This is temperatures away from the normal mean, and anywhere you see red, that means it's above average. So you can see as we kind of scroll through the CFS model, there's really a good indication that temperatures will remain relatively warmer than average as we get into the first week of March, and won't really go too far below average as we go into mid-March as well. So that's just a trend that's being noticed by the models. Again, we're kind of in an El Nino pattern, which does favor warmer temperatures than average. But again, the expectation is that El Nino will eventually shift into La Nina, which will have big implications on the storm chasing season as well as the upcoming hurricane season across the Atlantic. So that's all things on the table. Very active year looking like for much of the United States, especially on the eastern side. So make sure to subscribe, stay updated. There's going to be probably a few active events over the next few months, maybe throughout much of the year. So we're going to keep you updated on them and hopefully chase the ones that we can. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. And join us for Storm Chasing Tuesday. I'll be live on YouTube and Facebook. You can like us on Facebook, and then we're also available on the Gram. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.